Here I was, standing in the dim light of a hotel bar, the city's pulse vibrating through the walls, when everything changed. I'm Amelia, living what many would call the dream. A stable job, a loving boyfriend of 6 years, and a life that ticked all the right boxes. But tonight, something felt off. My heart was racing, not with excitement for the conference I was attending, but with a longing for something more. As I sipped my wine, a stranger's gaze locked with mine, igniting a spark that promised to burn through the monotony of my carefully curated life. Could one night of passion be worth the risk of unraveling everything I've built? Stay with me to find out what happened next, and why this night might just change everything. The rain pattered softly against the window of my hotel room, each drop a whisper of the storm brewing within me. I stood there, my breath fogging the glass, staring out at the neon-lit streets of this unfamiliar city. The city was alive, pulsating with a rhythm that felt both exhilarating and alien. I was Amelia, 29, with a life that seemed perfectly curated, but tonight, something was off. The weight of my 6-year relationship with Mark felt heavier than ever, like a well-worn coat that no longer fit. I adjusted the strap of my dress, feeling the fabric slide against my skin, a reminder of the evening ahead. The conference had ended, and the night stretched before me, vast and unscripted. My phone buzzed with a message from Mark, a routine check-in, but I silenced it, tucking it into my clutch. Tonight, I needed something different, something more. The hotel bar was dimly lit, the kind of place where secrets could be whispered without fear of being overheard. I chose a seat at the corner, where I could observe without being too obvious. The bartender, a man with a knowing smile, slid a glass of red wine towards me. "On the house," he said, his voice low. "For the lady who looks like she's searching for something." I sipped the wine, its warmth spreading through me, loosening the knots of my carefully controlled life. That's when I saw him. He was at the other end of the bar, his presence magnetic, drawing eyes like moths to a flame. He was older, perhaps in his late 30s, with a gaze that seemed to pierce through the veneer of my existence. His suit was tailored, his demeanor confident yet tinged with an air of mystery. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. He raised his glass in a silent toast, his eyes never leaving mine. There was something in his look, a recognition of the restlessness I felt, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken desires that had begun to stir within me. I felt a flush creep up my neck, my heart beating a staccato rhythm against my chest. I returned his toast with a slight nod, my lips brushing the rim of my glass, the wine now tasting like forbidden fruit. He moved closer, his steps deliberate, his presence enveloping me like the scent of his cologne, a mix of cedarwood and something darker, more intoxicating. "May I join you?" His voice was a velvet caress, sending a shiver down my spine. I nodded, unable to trust my voice, and he settled into the seat beside me. His proximity was electric, the air between us charged with an unspoken tension. We talked, or rather, he spoke, and I listened, captivated. His words painted pictures of distant lands, of adventures and misadventures, each story laced with a hint of danger and allure. His eyes, a deep shade of hazel, seemed to see right through me, to the parts of myself I kept hidden even from Mark. As the night deepened, so did our conversation, moving from the mundane to the profound. He asked about my life, my dreams, and with each question, I felt the walls I had built around myself crumble. His hand at one point brushed mine, a seemingly accidental touch that felt like a spark igniting a fire. The bar began to empty, the city outside quieting down, but inside, the world was expanding. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "Would you like to see more of the city, Amelia? There's a place not far from here, where the night truly comes alive." I hesitated, the image of Mark flashing in my mind, his smile, his predictability. But the pull of this stranger, the promise of something wild and untamed, was too strong. I found myself nodding, my decision made in the space of a heartbeat. We walked through the rain-drenched streets, his umbrella sheltering us both, our shoulders brushing with each step. The city, with its neon glow and the soft patter of rain, felt like a stage set for our clandestine encounter. We arrived at a hidden speakeasy, the kind of place where the past and present mingled, where secrets were as common as the drinks served. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with jazz and the murmur of low voices. He led me to a secluded booth where the dim lighting cast shadows that danced around us. Here, in this cocoon of anonymity, I felt liberated, as if the rules of my life didn't apply. His fingers traced the outline of my hand, a gentle, exploratory touch that sent waves of anticipation through me. The conversation turned more personal, more intimate. He spoke of his own life, his own heartaches, and in his stories, I found echoes of my own suppressed desires. The night unfolded with a slow, sensual rhythm, our words and touches weaving a tapestry of temptation. As the hour grew late, he whispered, "Would you like to come up to my room? I have a view you might enjoy." His invitation was clear, the implication heavy in the air. My mind raced, torn between the thrill of the unknown and the comfort of the known. But the pull towards this new, exhilarating experience was undeniable. We left the speakeasy, the cool night air a stark contrast to the heat building within me. In the elevator, his hand found the small of my back, a touch that felt both possessive and protective, as if promising something more. As the elevator ascended, the hum of its machinery was the only sound between us, a mechanical heartbeat that matched the pulsing of my own. His touch at the small of my back was a silent promise, a prelude to what was to come. The doors slid open, revealing a dimly lit hallway, the plush carpet muffling our steps as we walked to his room. The door clicked shut behind us, sealing off the outside world. The room was expansive, with large windows that offered a panoramic view of the city, its lights twinkling like distant stars. He walked over to the window, drawing back the curtains, and the cityscape spread out before us, a silent witness to our unfolding story. "Would you like a drink?" he asked, his voice smooth, almost blending with the soft jazz playing from somewhere in the room. I nodded, my throat suddenly dry, my senses heightened. He poured 2 glasses of a rich amber liquid, handing one to me. Our fingers touched, and I felt that spark again, more intense now, as if it could ignite the very air we breathed. We stood by the window, sipping our drinks, the city below us a blur of motion and light. His gaze was on me, not the view, and I could feel the weight of his attention, the way it seemed to strip away layers of my carefully constructed self. "You're not what you seem, Amelia," he murmured, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through me. "There's a fire in you, a desire for something more than what you've settled for." His words hit too close, stirring a storm of emotions within me. Guilt, excitement, fear, and a longing so deep it ached. I turned away from the window, setting my glass down with a clink. "And what do you think I've settled for?" I challenged, my voice steadier than I felt. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "A life of predictability, of routine. You're meant for more than that." His hand reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear, his touch lingering. "You're meant for passion, for the unknown." The room seemed to shrink, the space between us charged with an electric tension. His hand moved to my cheek, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw. "Let go, Amelia," he whispered, his breath warm against my skin. "Just for tonight. Let go." The invitation was there, laid bare, My heart pounded, a mix of thrill and trepidation. Here was the line, the boundary I had never crossed. Mark's face flashed in my mind, his gentle smile, his predictable love. But this man, this stranger, offered something else, something wild and untamed, something that promised to fill the void I hadn't realized was there. I stepped into his embrace, feeling the heat of his body through the thin fabric of my dress. His lips found mine, a kiss that was both a question and an answer, a dance of fire and ice. The world outside faded. There was only the sensation of his touch, the taste of whiskey on his lips, the soft moan that escaped me as he deepened the kiss. We moved together, a slow, deliberate dance towards the bed. The room was a cocoon, the city lights casting shadows that played over our bodies. Clothes were shed with a reverence, each piece revealing more of the other, an unveiling of desires long suppressed. His touch was everywhere, igniting my skin, his fingers tracing paths that sent shivers down my spine. The intimacy was intense, a blend of tenderness and raw need. Our breaths mingled, our bodies moved in a rhythm that felt both foreign and deeply familiar. In the quiet aftermath, as our breathing slowed, I lay there, his arm draped over me, feeling the weight of what had just happened. The room was silent except for the distant hum of the city, the occasional siren, a reminder of life outside this bubble. I turned to look at him, his face softened in sleep, the lines of his life etched less deeply now. A part of me wanted to stay in this moment forever, to escape the consequences of my actions. But as dawn began to paint the sky with hues of pink and orange, reality crept back in. Guilt, sharp and biting, began to gnaw at me. What had I done? The thrill of the night was now overshadowed by the stark realization of betrayal. Mark's trust, our shared life, seemed to hang in the balance, fragile as the morning light. I slipped out of bed, gathering my clothes in silence. The man stirred, his eyes opening to slits, watching me dress. "You don't have to leave," he said, his voice still thick with sleep. I paused, my hand on the doorknob, looking back at him. "I do," I whispered, not just to him but to myself. "I have to face what I've done." The door closed behind me with a soft click, leaving the room and the man behind. The hallway felt colder, the plush carpet less welcoming. As I walked back to my own room, each step felt like a march towards an uncertain future, where the thrill of the night would be weighed against the love I had risked. The story of Amelia's night of infidelity was not just about the act itself, but about the journey of self-discovery, the battle between desire and duty, and the complex tapestry of human emotions that could not be neatly resolved in the light of day. Back in my own hotel room, the silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the symphony of emotions that had played out in the stranger's room. I sat on the edge of the bed, my fingers tracing the fabric of the sheets, feeling the coolness of the cotton against my skin. The room seemed to close in around me, the walls echoing with the weight of my choices. My phone lay on the nightstand, a silent sentinel of the life I had momentarily left behind. I reached for it, my hand trembling slightly as I unlocked the screen. There were missed calls from Mark, each one a reminder of the life I was supposed to be living. The messages were simple, loving, unaware of the storm that had just passed through my heart. I dialed his number, my thumb hesitating over the call button. What would I say? How could I explain the inexplicable? The phone rang, and with each tone my resolve wavered. Finally, his voice came through, groggy with sleep. "Amelia? Everything okay?" The sound of his voice, so familiar, so comforting, made my heart ache. "Yes, Mark, I just wanted to hear your voice," I managed, my voice a whisper of its usual self. "Is something wrong?" he asked, concern threading through his words. I swallowed hard, the truth burning on my tongue. No, just, I miss you, I lied, the words tasting like ash.
We'll be together soon,
He said, his voice softening.
just a few more days.
I nodded, though he couldn't see me, and ended the call quickly, unable to bear the conversation any longer. The room felt too small, too confining. I needed air, space to think, to breathe. Dressed in my conference attire, I left the room, the door closing with a finality that echoed in my chest. The hotel lobby was quiet, the early morning light casting long shadows across the marble floor. I walked out into the city, the streets now empty of the night's revelers, the rain having ceased, leaving the air crisp and cool. I wandered aimlessly, each step taking me further from the hotel, from the scene of my betrayal. The city was waking up, its pulse slow and steady, a stark contrast to the tumult within me. I found myself at a small park, the benches still wet from the night's rain. Sitting down, I watched as the sky turned from pink to a soft blue, the city coming to life around me. My mind replayed the night over and over. The thrill, the passion, the forbidden touch of another man's skin against mine. It was intoxicating, yes, but now, in the sober light of day, it felt like a dream, a fleeting escape from reality that now seemed to mock me with its impermanence. The park was slowly filling with morning joggers and dog walkers, their lives seemingly untouched by the turmoil that had upended mine. I watched them, envying their simplicity, their ignorance of the complexities that love and desire could weave. My phone buzzed again, pulling me from my reverie. It was Mark again. This time I answered, my voice steady but hollow. "Hey, Mark."
Amelia, you sound off. Are you sure everything's okay?
His voice was filled with genuine concern, the kind that made my heart twist with guilt. I need to tell you something, I said, the words heavy, each one a step towards the precipice. There was a pause, a silence so profound it seemed to swallow the sounds of the waking city.
What is it?
His voice was cautious now, sensing the gravity of what was to come. I took a deep breath, the cool morning air filling my lungs, giving me the courage I desperately needed. Last night, I met someone. And My voice faltered, the confession like shards of glass in my throat.
You what, Amelia?
His tone was sharp now, the edge of betrayal cutting through the distance between us. I was unfaithful, Mark. I'm so sorry. The words rushed out, a dam breaking, releasing the flood of guilt and shame that had been building since dawn. Silence stretched between us, a chasm that felt impossible to bridge. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost unrecognizable.
Why, Amelia? Why would you do this?
I closed my eyes, tears threatening to spill. I don't know, Mark. I felt trapped in our routine, in our life. I needed to feel something else, something more. But that doesn't excuse what I've done. The line was quiet, save for the sound of his breathing, ragged and uneven.
I need time,
he said finally, his voice a mix of hurt and anger.
I need to think.
I understand, I whispered, my heart sinking. Take all the time you need. The call ended, and with it, a part of me felt severed. I sat there, the weight of my confession anchoring me to the bench, the morning sun now fully risen, casting long shadows that seemed to reflect the darkness within me. As the day progressed, I moved through the motions of the conference, my mind elsewhere, replaying the conversation, the night, the choices. The guilt was a constant companion, whispering doubts and what-ifs into my ear. By evening, I was back in my hotel room, the silence of the space a stark contrast to the turmoil within. The day had been a blur, my mind replaying the confession, the hurt in Mark's voice, and the fleeting moments of ecstasy that now felt like a distant, forbidden dream. I stood by the window, the city lights below now a tapestry of regret. The skyline, once a symbol of freedom and possibility, now seemed to mock me with its indifference. The weight of my actions pressed down on me, each breath heavy with the realization of what I had risked, what I might have lost. The phone lay silent on the bed, its screen dark, a reflection of the void I felt inside. I picked it up, my fingers tracing the edges, contemplating the next step. The conference was over, and with it, my excuse to be away from home, from Mark, from the life I had momentarily escaped. I dialed Mark's number again, unsure of what to say. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.